can imagine that staff relations like that make it easier to recruit and retain. Let's move on now to clients, and in particular fees. How do you charge, and how transparent are you about fees, and how important is it to be transparent?
I'll start. So we're probably 80% retainer base, which I think if I was a client I would feel the best about. And we try and base that on the complexity and not just the assets, but the complexity and the time involved. We do track time because some clients we do bill hourly, and we find that's a good check for us to do that. On the AUM side, it's in there, and I think for perspective of the retainer, I think is one that that also is not the easiest on an ongoing basis to go back to the clients to get fee increases from there. And we probably are on the side of being a little less expensive than other firms, but we also have very high retention rates.
I mean, I do charge flat fees too, and one of the things I put in my contract is that every 2 years I will adjust the fee upward.
Understand. Hi.
Yeah, we're almost exclusively assets under management billing. We're prepared to change that, but we get no demand for it from our current clientele, and who we're attracting are people who a big part of their picture is the investment management function. So I don't think we're going to see a huge demand for something else anytime immediately soon. But we don't care whether it's a flat fee or an AUM fee, as long as we're getting paid adequately. But right now, almost all the fees are AUM.
What assets do you charge on? How do you decide what the AUM fee is applied to?
Yeah, the traditional investment assets, so IRAs,
so
401ks.
I have a 401k.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And what do you say when a client says, well, my employer has really set me up with a 401k, and I don't think that should be under your management?
Yeah, okay. See you. It's part of your financial picture. We're comprehensive financial planners. We're not going to advise you without advising on the 401k.
Are there any accounts that you pull out comfortably and still maintain the relationship?
A couple of things that we will not bill on will be things that are hard to value, things that we didn't put them in, like non-traded REITs. They're kind of stuck and that type of thing. But for the most part, most of our clients see, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You're offering yourself out into the marketplace as a firm that can handle traditional investment assets as well as the financial planning, and you're attracting people who want the financial planning that have lots of investment assets, so it kind of feeds itself that way.
So if I'm a client and all of a sudden I've come into money, pick a reason, but my portfolio just went up by 30%, and it wasn't from investment prowess, and I'm wondering, why is my fee going up?
Well, your fee's going up because there's more at stake would be one reason. My liability's going up would be another reason. I mean, there's lots of reasons the fee should go up. It shouldn't go in proportion. I mean, you tear it down.
Yeah.
The higher value client, the next dollar that comes in is billed at a very, very low rate. It's not a perfect system by any stretch of the imagination, but nothing else is. I mean, they're talking about how to raise the fees every couple of years. So I don't know. If I was paying a flat fee and suddenly I forked out a bunch of money for a big charitable contribution, there's a point where you wonder, why am I paying the same fee when there's less at stake here?
Right.
You can make an argument either way. So if the clients are arguing that much about the fees, I think you have a relationship issue. They're not quite getting the scope of what you're doing, or maybe you're charging way too much. That could be a possibility too. But we don't. We're very average. Thank you. We're very average. That's our pitch. And boring too.
Reliably average.
Yes.
That's good.
That's right.
Yeah, we're a mix of the two. We're AUM and flat fees or retainer fees, whatever you want to call them. And I really don't have much to add. There's conflicts in any model that you have, and you just got to manage those conflicts. But we just find that the mix works best for us.
And fee transparency? I guess with AUM it's pretty clear.
They get a written invoice every quarter. It's right there in the statement. It's hard to miss.
It's in their agreement. We have a fee addendum to the agreement, and it's in the ADV.
I mean, the other thing I say is, I do think with NAPFA firms, the idea of given the underlying investment fees, I mean, I leave that up to each person here, but I think you get to a point of our job is really to pick investments that we think are there. It's not just the lowest cost, but I think that gets to a point of just added confusion for the client, but I think each person has to figure out what they feel comfortable with that.
let's turn now to quality control at the firm level. And so pick an issue. Some of the ones that we talked about in our pre-conference call included your relationships with professional colleagues. Are you exchanging referrals, and why? You know, if attorney may not be the best for that client, but you've got a relationship, you know, how do you manage that? Not only how do you manage it in the abstract on a fiduciary financial planning exam, but when you're running a firm, how do you know that out of the scores of people in your firm that will happen in a fiduciary manner? Or any other, what I'm curious about is, what do you measure at the firm level? How do you keep quality control for the fiduciary perspective? Where are you seeing issues that may need management or policy?
I think if you're building your practice around attorneys, you're in trouble to start. That I would just say from a referral. So I think most of us on the attorney side would probably say that it's all going to err on the side of the better quality attorneys. If you got one referral every 2 years from an attorney, is probably a pretty good response rate that's out there. But I think it's always the same thing. As there's conflicts that are out there, you got to be careful. And you know, again, situations with family and different businesses, accountants that are out there, insurance. You know, again, none of us are in the insurance business, but there are a lot of insurance agents. If you go to an estate planning council, anytime you see the people with the orange badges, you're always hiding from them because they won't leave you alone. But again, I think from a standpoint that you got to manage the conflicts there. We have reporting on all gifts each monthly for that. We have a custody audit, we have a compliance audit. There's a lot of stuff, and we have a peer review audit where each person is required on a quarterly basis to defend a couple of their clients on what they've done and who they refer to in all their agendas and their investments along the way.
Can you explain that process a little bit?
So our compliance officer on a quarterly basis will, randomly select, I think a dozen clients for review, and it spreads out among the different advisors, and then a group will sit down and we'll all review it together to go over, all of their investments. We'll go over their agendas, all the different planning, and then we get to quiz them and find out why they recommended certain things, or recommended to not pay off the mortgage, or what they're doing with the stock options, concentrated stock positions, and we get to push them to the edge to find out, to make sure we're all comfortable with the advice that's going on and why they do certain things.
As I mentioned a little earlier, we have at least 2 CFP licensees in on every case in some manner or another. And the policy is you just want at least 2 sets of eyeballs looking at whatever goes out to a client with respect to the recommendations about any of it. So that helps quite a bit. So for a typical new client planning case, you're going to have a lead advisor, a secondary advisor. You're going to have some support advisor work from our G3 entry level, future planner guys, and client service administrator, all involved in creating the output that goes to clients for the recommendations.
Again, not much to add. We do it very similarly. We have a financial planning committee and an investment committee, and they meet monthly, and periodically the topic will be, rather than about a product or service, it'll be about a particular client's situation. We never really viewed it much like a peer review, but more of a sharing of ideas. And they also put out minimum standards for both the financial planning and the investment management at the firm.
Could you comment also on, to be a thriving, vibrant business, you have to grow, and most of us have growth goals. We often criticize the broker community for the sales mentality. How, as leaders of your firm, do you manage the potential tension between having a fiduciary culture and going for growth?
So again, for us, we don't do any marketing. We grow about 8 to 10% a year from referrals, and I don't think that we could grow 15% a year. Again, not as an AUM firm, because of the complexity of each of the situations and the amount of time and work that goes into the clients. So for us, if we move the needle, it would be maybe an extra 2% growth. And again, you see within a firm, there are certain people who culturally are better at, referrals and networking that comes in from there. But we do absolutely no marketing, and there's no culture around that stuff. So for us, it's really the capacity issues that we have that we can't necessarily handle, more than maybe 12% a year top line growth.
Yes, this is an area of concern because it's so dependent on public perception. If you're not growing, you're dying. You're not providing opportunities to your people. You're not getting as much value for the equity that you've built. So growth is a very important factor, but the consumer is as confused as ever, and it's only going to get worse because of regulation BS. So it is a bit concerning on that front. So we're reviewing messaging and how to present it and things like that on a more or less continual basis. And every 3 or 4 years, we actually change the messaging.
So we think the growth is very important too because it provides opportunities for our staff, for our clients. We have a deeper bench, and that's important. If somebody dies or goes away at the firm, you want to make sure that you have backups and redundancy. So we don't view the growth necessarily in conflict with our fiduciary standards. In fact, we think the growth's part of it. But we also are not looking to achieve growth for the sake of growth. I don't think really many firms feel that way. That's the case. At least I haven't seen it over the years here. So we think the growth is in line with behaving as a fiduciary as long as it's kept in perspective.
Changing the perspective now to a potential client or someone who's shopping for a family member, if someone looks at you from the outside, how do they recognize that you are a fiduciary firm, since our part of the world and other parts of the industry tend to use the same language? And I'm interested in hearing a differentiation between if you were going in and shopping for, your aunt who knows nothing, but you're 5 questions away from understanding whether this is a fiduciary firm. What would you proactively check out, and what would you be listening for? And maybe some questions about, how do you handle this or how do you handle that? But then also describe, if you didn't have your expertise, how would you recognize that your firm is a fiduciary firm beyond all the words?
I pass all the tough ones down.
All right, so a couple weeks ago I'm in Las Vegas on this panel, and the topic is retirement income. And it's David Blanchett, the head of research at Morningstar, myself, and this other guy.
This other guy is fiduciary, and basically all he does is he implements every client in a whole series of annuity products, fixed annuity products. It's a freak show out there for the public. So you try to educate them as best you can, and you have them look for the same things I look for when I get a request for, do you know anybody in such and such, North Dakota? No, I don't, right? First thing I do is I go to the NAPFA site, pray there's somebody on there, pray that they do things in a similar style to what this client needs. And if not, I got to start looking for things. So one easy thing to teach prospective clients to do is you look for on the marketing materials and the letterhead, securities offered through. Okay, that cuts it right there. That means they're working for a broker dealer. The essence of the fiduciary duty, clients do understand what it is. They just don't know that what it is fits that word, right? They want people that are acting truly in their best interest, which is why BS is the problem. Because they're rebranding suitability is what they're doing. The rule's not much different. They're just calling it best interest instead of suitability. It's awful. It's appalling. But what they do understand, the concept of working, and that photograph right there, that little deal, man, that nails it right there. They get that. So you talk in terms of that. You cannot serve two masters. We don't even try. That's one of the lines on our website. They get that. We do the same thing. In fact, while we have a prospective client in the room, we'll bring up the website and show them securities offered through so that they understand the difference. Registration, how they're registered, if it's FINRA versus the SEC, so that's relatively easy as well. But I think there's two components to this, how the world sees us and how we in the industry see us. When I started in the business, I was on the brokerage side for the first 3-4 years, and somebody told me about NAPFA, and I went to a conference, and wow, I found it. This is what I was looking for. These people think the way I want to think. They have their practices built the way I want to build our practice, and it was one of those aha moments. And it's hard for a layperson to get that aha moment. It's easier when you're in the business and you're on one side and you see the other side actually does exist and they can make a run at it. So for me as a professional, it was rather easy. But as a layperson, I think what they like is the transparency that all of us offer that you're not going to see in the brokerage world. I love when a client or a prospective client comes in with a brokerage app, and then you open it up, and on the back it's in this gray lettering, and it's 3 or 4 pages long of nonsense. You don't even know what it means. And then you pull out yours, and it's fully transparent about the fees, and it says fiduciary oath right in it. And I think clients and prospective clients appreciate that transparency. And I think that goes a long way toward them understanding that we're different.
So you've got a head start on the next question, but there's some talk in the fee-only community about having a one-pager, which would be a shopping guide. In one sense, the best practices do that, but I'm thinking of a one-pager that would help the layperson really understand how do you recognize a fiduciary firm. And you mentioned a couple things, but could you guys take a stab at what would be on your one-pager? Maybe crowdsourced from the three of you?
I think I think within the world, outside, I mean, New York's a weird marketplace. Again, Tom's in New Jersey and in New York, and Luau Festival, you guys know. I don't think we've ever run across anyone in New York that was a fee-only planner, as a competitor. It's dominated by Morgan, Goldman, Bernstein, and Neuberger. And generally, clients that are coming to us are pre-sold, through friends. And I think the fee-only concept, and if you say to the client, we're the least conflicted, we're not completely unconflicted, but the least conflicted of the situations out there is, I think, what's the key for them, and that they understand. If you get too much, I think, into the technical aspects of fiduciary, I think you're going to lose them. And again, for us, it's really a matter. These are pretty much pre-sold, and I mean, I screw them up maybe 10 or 20% of the time, but they're pretty much easy sales for us.
But if someone came to your firm and they didn't have the referral and they didn't have the background in our industry, what couple of things could they check out that would say, oh, I don't know anything about this, but I think you're a fiduciary?
And I would say also is we don't give any advice. We don't have any model portfolios. We will do a plan first, and we will charge you for it, and then we will come up with an investment plan after there, and you will get a chance to review it, and we'll go through it very carefully from a standpoint for you as a team approach to this. So again, for us, we don't take, someone comes in and just says, here's $2 million, and throw it into my Model C portfolio because I'm a reasonably conservative person.